Hello and welcome back to the Accountants Club podcast. I'm your host, Paul Redmond. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the biggest game changers in the accountancy world today, automation. We'll cover how automation can help you free up time, improve efficiency, and ultimately provide more value for your clients by focusing on advisory work. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear plan to start automating parts of your practice and elevate your role. So at the start, I suppose what I really want to talk about, what's the problem? And we broached this in the last episode as well, but it's the compliance time trap. This is a big barrier for accountants when they're trying to transition from one side to the other. Compliance work is incredibly time consuming, it's repetitive, it leaves no room for higher value activities, and it also is very deadline focused. So I want to explore why this is a critical issue. So what is the current challenge? And I suppose why are accountants getting stuck in compliance work? The answer to this is simple. The workload has increased as clients expect faster and more comprehensive services. The more time spent on compliance means less time is available for advisory work. And are these tasks beneficial to your practice's profitability? Compliance work, while necessary, often comes with low profit margins. It's difficult to build a thriving practice on low margin services, especially when you're handling routine tasks that really can be automated. And this is something that we have inherently brought in. And we've also, no matter what we do, the compliance work keeps coming in and there's more regulation, there's more invoices, there's more data. I remember a time when we were told, right, when this computer comes in, we're going to have no work to do. The computer's going to do all the work and we're all going to be sitting at home or sitting on an island. This never happens, as we know now. So what is the consequence of staying in the loop of compliance? So what happens if accountants continue to focus solely on compliance? The truth is automation and technology make compliance work a lot easier and it becomes more of a commodity, leaving accountants who focus on compliance at risk of being replaced or undervalued. How does it affect the client relationship? We have limited time, means fewer meaningful conversations with clients, resulting in opportunities being missed. So we're not going to see the work we have to do when we try to transition from this advisory. So this is the trap. So the trap is that we have to do the compliance work because it has to be done. The compliance work is getting more difficult to do. The automation trap is moving really fast, so we can't keep up with the automation. And we don't know how to actually position ourselves properly to move over for the compliance work. It's like being stuck on a hamster wheel. You're tirelessly going around, but you're not making any real progress in terms of growth or delivering increased value. And you're putting in all this effort without seeing the desired income. So what is the model? And how is automation the solution to the model that we're in? And why is it now? Because automation has been around forever. I remember the time when we're doing writing up books and records on paper. And we went from there to the computer. So automation has always been here. But the thing about it is, it's the speed of the automation tools that are available now, like ChatGPT, like accounting bots, like AI. And this thing, we can't stop this. This is coming at us faster and harder, and more critical tasks are being done by automation. And we're not really recognizing what automation is. Imagine 20 years ago, having a little card that you walked over to the bank, you put this card into a wall outside the bank or maybe in a local shop, you pressed in some buttons and it gave you out cash. I mean, that's unheard of when we were going, and now people would laugh at you if you said that to them. Even look at the iPhone, look at how fast, or the mobile phone, that you can now talk to somebody on the other side of the world for free. So it's the automation that comes in alongside that. And the thing about it is that the generation coming now don't understand what we were doing in the past, so they don't really care. All they care is getting a result to what they're looking for, to the information. So if you automate, what are the benefits that's going to come? And what impact does it have on your daily workflow? So it helps you to free up time, obviously. It allows you to focus on high value activities such as financial planning, advisory sessions, and building stronger client relationships. That is a real benefit if we take a step back. But how much time, and in terms of time, how much time you're spending on repetitive tasks. So you really need to look at that. So if you look into your practice and you're looking at the things you're doing repetitively, and you're genuinely looking at the amount of time it takes, and you genuinely look at how this can be replaced, that's going to give you a really, really example. And it doesn't have to be a massive thing. It can be something as simple as using Dext. It could be as simple as doing bank reconciliations and connecting your bank accounts. Improved accuracy is another one. Does it really improve accuracy? That's what we're asking ourselves. And were we more accurate doing it ourselves than having a machine do the work for us? So for me, I always ask that question. I think we'd be better looking at ourselves, and we have the human eye and we can make the human decision. But the risk of human error is, I won't say completely eliminated, but is vastly reduced. And we get more accurate data with having a machine do the piece of work for. There is fewer errors, and the work becomes more reliable, and we can gain, and the clients can gain more trust then in where we spend our expertise ourselves in the practice. You take something like a bank reconciliation, and I'm harping on this because it's something every accountant and bookkeeper does. But that bank reconciliation, when it's done by a bot, it actually checks multi-directional. So it will check the bank statements to the actual entry. It will check it both ways, multi-directional. It'll make sure that it lines up with what the invoice is, and when it's connecting with the invoice, it will actually what we call green it. So they do vast amounts of little checks where we might not necessarily do that check every single time. You will see the check and you'll know that goes from there to there. But it allows us to work on the instructions that we give the bot. So if we're giving a bot detailed instructions and an automation, it's the instructions that we give it. So we need to make sure the instructions are correct. But once we give it that instructions, it will do it the same way every single time. So again, what are the simple tools that you can use for automation within an accountancy practice? And as I said, softwares that are out there, there's huge numbers of different softwares, and I can't name them all, but the main ones are Xero and Sage, and QuickBooks would be the big accountancy practice. There's loads of really good other ones there. And in terms of those particular automations, what are the basic things that they can do? Well, data entry and reconciliation is the two big things that they can do and help on the bookkeeping side of that while providing accurate results. And then we have specific automation tools for managing receipts and invoices. And it means less time entering data and more time interpreting the results. And you can see the pattern here. Less time entering, more interpretation. Less time, more interpretation. And this keeps coming up every single where we do. Less time, more interpretation. So at our own practice in RDA, what changes did we see when automation was introduced? So just automating simple things like reconciliations and invoice processing, we freed up approximately 30% of our team's time. We use this time to provide more quarterly business reviews, to do more upper-ended work for the client, and to strengthen the relationship with the client and added more value. But it strengthened more than the relationship with the client. It now meant that our team, who are highly qualified, like we've a lot of people with degrees and professional exams behind them, and they don't necessarily want to spend time typing information into a computer. They were trained to interpret the information. So now training and your team's time is actually really focused on what really matters, is using the skills and using the interpretation skills that you've built and you're learning as you go through. So the next thing we're going to look is how do you get started with all of this? And what should be the first step? So if you're new to automation, it's important not to feel overwhelmed. So start small and focus on one aspect at a time. And let's break down the first steps you can take. Start with one tool, right? So this is where you should pick a tool that can solve a specific pain point in your practice. If it's receipt processing and it's taking up too much time, start with something like auto entry or Dext. If the bookkeeping becomes more burdensome, Xero can be a great solution. So why is starting with one tool beneficial? Because you'll learn the tool and you'll see the benefit. And what we're looking for here is results that can be seen quickly. And it's not just to prove your point, but it's also to bring the team on board. And it avoids massive overwhelm within the job when you're taking on something new into the business. Overwhelm can be a real detriment to everything. How do you identify the repetitive tasks for automation? They're the things that you do every day, constantly, and that you do on an ongoing basis. And these can be many things. They can be client reminders, for to pay tax, they can be invoice processing, as we said, they tend to be initially around bookkeeping, deadline management. There's where they initially come in. So we just need to get a list. And the best way to get that list is talk to your team. And a really important thing here is bring your team on board at the very, very start of this process and give them ownership of this. Because when somebody takes ownership of automation, it becomes their job and they feel part of this. And that means that they will take it on board and they're not afraid of what automation is going to bring within the practice. So I suppose think of automation as adding a turbo to your car. It doesn't replace the engine, but it makes everything work faster and smoother. So how much faster could your practice be with a turbocharged engine, freeing up your focus on where you're heading, not just where you want to get? And that's a really big metaphor to look at in this case. So we started really small with connecting bank accounts. That was the very first thing, just connect the bank accounts, because we all know how difficult it is to get bank statements. So we got that part working first. Then we got the decks working, and we're at an advanced stage of automation now where we're doing things like we're writing our own bots, we're making our own bots, we're educating the bots basically on journal entries and things like that. And this is where it's going. And you have to start at the very start to get you on board to where you want to go. So there's a 3-step process really for the actionable steps that you can take when you're integrating automation today. The first one, as I talked about, is identify the repetitive tasks, implement an automation tool. And here's one that we don't often do, which is measure the impact. If you don't measure the impact, it'll be like if you're going to a weight loss program, if they ask you to record your food all week and you don't do it, well, what they're going to say to you is stand up, don't bother standing up on the scales, we'll guess what weight you are. But having that information in the background, as you know, the historical numbers will always give you an understanding of where you're really, really saving money. And it helps you identify where your time needs to focus. So once you get this time saved, what's your focus next? You need to consider spending this newly available time on the advisor services. So providing the insights again into the client's business health and even holding additional meetings with your client. So I suppose start small, build small, and you'll have a massive big change in the practice in a very, very small space of time. So I suppose the final thoughts on this, automation is not about taking away the personal touch from your practice. It's about giving you the freedom to focus on what truly matters. So by embracing automation, you're going to create a lot more opportunities for your clients, your practice, your team, and yourself. And it's going to help you make more informed decisions. So I suppose really, what am I asking you to do? I'm asking you, are you ready to take the next step? So join the wait list for our community. And in there, we're going to be looking at so much of this stuff because over 40 years, this is a passion project for me as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these stages in a lot more detail, and we're going to take each one of these stages and work through them one step at a time. In the next episode, we're going to discuss how do you find the right clients for advisory services, and then how do you initiate conversations that go beyond compliance. This is critical if you want to transition your practice into something that's more impactful and rewarding. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you on the next episode.